Hey TV fans, Bored now back with you. On this video I will be talking about the first episode of the new Netflix series 1899. Episode 1 is called The Ship, so full spoilers from the start of this review as always. And yeah, this is pretty big really because it's from the creators of the acclaimed series Dark, the sort of sci-fi mystery which ran for a few seasons from about 2016, I want to say, something like that, 2017, around that sort of time. Now, I'll be honest, I've only seen a few episodes of Dark, which was a few years ago. I saw obviously the first few episodes, and I've not gone back to it since, but I did like what I saw, and I've heard some really good things from other people, so it's definitely on my list to go back to. It's just one of those things where I've not really got round to it, but definitely on my list. I will go back and check out some more Dark because I like what I saw and I've been hearing good things, so definitely one to do. But because of the acclaim of that series, this one has been hyped up pretty big, and especially for the target audience for this sort of thing, it's one which has been anticipated from like genre fans, and quite a lot of buzz behind this one. So a big show for Netflix. Again, it sort of has a similar type feel, like a mystery sci-fi type thing, expected to be possibly time travel involved, or like different like multiverses, that kind of thing. So the setup is that it's set on a ship and it's 1899 as the title suggests, and you have this main character of Marina, played by Emily Beecham, who I know from a few things, pretty familiar face, and she's like a psychologist or a doctor. She's on this ship and they're on their way to New York. It's a cruise liner, and there's a group of like other characters who we get to know a little bit in this first episode. For example, there's a geisha, and it like explores some of the traditions behind that and some of the limitations, maybe some of the sexism, as this geisha is like getting frustrated with like the requirements, the restrictions of that sort of role, and the tradition, which is she's sort of finding it very overbearing, and she's trying to rebel. And there's other characters. There's like a set of brothers, like one's like religious. I think his name was Ramon or Miguel, something like that, and he's got this brother who's a bit more like outspoken, very sort of like outlandish a little bit. And there's a group of other people. There's a stranger at one point who appears to be one of the crew, but they don't seem to recognise him when they spot him. So it just sets up a few different characters. Now, just to focus on the main character as the way into it, because she is like mostly the lead of the show, the Emily Beecham character, is then the episode opens with her sort of screaming like in like a mental asylum, and that she's being dragged away, but she's screaming at someone, "I know what you did to my brother," and getting all hyper about it. And then as the guy walks into frame, it's like this quite old guy who I guess is meant to be the doctor, but then he says like, "Wake up," and she wakes up, and it's revealed that it's a dream, or it's something from her past, something like that. And she wakes up and she's on this ship. She's got a note from her brother, who I think is meant to be in New York, and the note says something along the lines of, "I know what they did, I know what my father did," or "what they did to my father," something along that line. And then you sort of see her, or hear her, Marina that is, repeating the year, reminding herself of the date, which is October 1899, and like, I think she says her name or something, but she says, I'm not crazy. And that's kind of when it cuts to the credits. But the whole deal is that she's on this ship, and there's this other ship, the Prometheus, which has gone missing. But then the main ship, which I forget the name of actually, but it's contacted by, well, the captain thinks it's contacted by the Prometheus. They start getting these regular signals from this other ship, and he's convinced that it's the Prometheus trying to contact them, even though the Prometheus has been like lost now for quite a few months, and a lot of people have given up on it. There's talk about it amongst the crew and the passengers on this ship. But then at some point they do come across this ship, which is the Prometheus, and we get a series of characters who go aboard it, including the main character Marina, obviously the captain. We also get this sort of mystery crew member. There's a little bit of a subversion with him. Also the priest, there's like, because the captain insists that if they've been through a lot of trauma, the people on Prometheus, then they might actually want a priest. And there's stuff like that, and obviously the fact that they've gone back to because they want to rescue the crew off this ship, that ruffles some feathers, particularly this one character who seems, because you've got like this young couple who you see they're having like friction in their relationship, and one of them is when he hears that they're being put off course for a while and that they'll get to New York really late, he gets really uptight and upset, and there's a question mark hanging over that about like, why are you getting so upset? Why does it matter if we're late by one day? And that's sort of one of many questions which is like hung in the air in the episode. And at the same time, the main gal Marina is having certain flashes throughout, certain weird things are happening. Like, it keeps cutting to like the number on like a certain cabin. That obviously becomes a thing, and that comes back at the end of the episode when a certain character walks into it. So you get these certain like mystery sort of vibes and certain things about people's past, particularly Marina. And a lot of this first episode is setting up the mystery, setting up some of the characters. But there's obviously going to be a lot to it and a lot of like unraveling involved. But this was a really good first episode, really strong. From the opening scene, like just that opening shot and that opening scene before the titles, it was just a great hook from the very beginning. I was into this. I was into like the different mysteries it was setting up, and the characters were solid. I mean, not necessarily the greatest characters ever, but that they were solid enough, and there was some good acting. The cast were really solid and strong in some cases. You know, Emily Beecham was very good in it. She was very natural. I quite liked her character from the beginning. I was like invested in her. Also, the guy playing the captain, I really like. I think there was generally like an edge to him, like a sort of like a brooding quality, because obviously he sets out these rules quite early on where he's quite sort of steadfast, and that he's like determined to find this ship and to like rescue the crew no matter what. And he seems quite detached in that way, where like it's sort of his way or the highway. But at the same time, there is like this edge to him. There's like this brooding sort of quality about him where he seems very sort of unsettled and disturbed about it. He has this sort of good mix where he comes off as quite cold and aloof at times, but he also has a lot going on as well. Like, he's very troubled about something, and I think the actor plays that very well. So I really like that actor, and like the character has a lot of intrigue about him, and seems to have a lot of layers. Like, it could go either way. Like, he could become a sympathetic character, or he could become more of a villain. It's hard to tell that. And at the moment, with some of the characters, it's similar, really. It's hard to say. I mean, some of them seem more likeable than others. Obviously, the geisha girl is quite sympathetic at the moment, and a lot of things, or one of the things which is big in the episode, is then there's a lot about religion at the moment, because, for example, you get this subplot of these characters who are like below the deck, and I think they're like meant to be immigrants, and the sort of drama is like commenting on maybe like discrimination against them. I might be reading that wrong, but anyway, there's this particular thing about like members of the crew, or like other people on the ship shouldn't go down there. Like, at one point the captain tells the mariner, then that's a rule, you don't go below deck, sort of thing. But there's this whole thing where at one point this guy runs on board, like runs on the deck and starts screaming help. I think it's his sister or something like that, but she's like pregnant and needs help delivering the baby. And because basically they're all being snobs and they're all shunning like the people down below, it's like they're telling him, get out of here, basically, we're not interested. But as a doctor, Marina is like the one person who's like, yeah, let me help, I'm a doctor, I'll come down and treat her. And it's this whole thing where she has to, it's a very tense procedure because she has to turn the baby around because the baby's facing the wrong way. So it's quite a tense scene where she has to help this woman and like turn the baby around. So it's well done, but then there's this stuff about religion involved where the mother of the girl who's giving birth doesn't want Marina to help because she's like super religious and very sort of old-fashioned, doesn't see it as a thing where someone who isn't religious or someone from the outside shouldn't get involved. So, but like in this episode, it does set up a lot of things to do with religion, because when they're talking, like, you've got like the sister of the girl, I think it's the sister of the girl who gives birth, that she, when they wake up in the middle of the night and they've decided to turn the ship around, she starts saying that, telling her about this sort of legend really of this ghost ship, and that's linked to religion as well, because like it's something to do with the passengers on it being very religious and they were punished or something like that. And she's like, don't tell our parents about that because they're very religious. But that sets up the idea about this ghost ship, which very well could be what's going on with the Prometheus. And certain mysteries come out of that. Now, just speaking of it, well, first of all, I'll say then, one theory that ran through my mind with these people below deck is then it could be then the captain is insisting on no one going down there for other reasons. It might not just be that he's being a bigot or anything. It could just be that there's supernatural shit going on involving them, because it's that sort of show. So maybe there's something supernatural about them, or maybe, yeah, there's some sort of ghost like presence on this ship, or just something like that. Because it's that sort of like thing, I sort of get the impression then there's more to it than him just being like a bigoted sort of arsehole type thing. So there's stuff going on there which is also intriguing. And speaking of stuff with other characters, one subversion which I liked was how you had this character who's set up, and he says he's one of the crew. He like appears out of nowhere at one point, and he's another person who the captain ends up taking to the other ship. And there's a little bit of like element of racism here, because there's very little. I think he might be the only person of colour on this ship. He's the only one we see anyway. I think the priest was like Mexican, something like that. So obviously he's. And there are other races. I'm not, obviously, because Geisha, So there are other races, but like actual out of like the non-foreign people on this ship, he's like the only person of colour who I noticed, sort of thing, is what I'm getting at. But then they actually subvert his character, because at first it makes it look like, oh, he's this sort of odd sort of stranger who they don't seem to recognise. But then it's the person he's talking to who actually turned out to be like the weird sort of stranger who there's something strange going on. So they obviously did that as a subversion, because this other guy obviously goes over to the other ship with them, and then sort of at the very end of the episode where things are being like set up for the next episode, this other guy walks to the door, the same door number we've been seeing at times throughout, and he walks into it, and then this is just a hint of how sort of weird this thing is at times, because Marina has had this thing with like this, I think it's meant to be a cockroach, but some sort of like insect, where earlier in the episode where like the young girl is like asking her about, do you have any children, and she says she can't have children, and suddenly there's this flash and you see this cockroach, and it like unsettles her. And then later on, when they're on this ship and they're looking around like the other ship, because the whole thing is that it seems to be abandoned, like the crew don't seem to be on there at all. There doesn't seem like there's anyone on there. So, but then she sees this cockroach, the same sort of like bug or insect she's seen before, or she's had like flashes of. So she starts chasing it around, to the bemusement of the others, but she chases it towards this like cupboard, and she like unlocks the cupboard, opens, and there's this kid in there, and he doesn't really say anything, but like he has this like pyramid type thing which she hands her, but at the same time it's cut in between the two ships, and you see this other guy, the guy who was talking to the coloured man earlier, and he goes into this room, like the room we've seen before, the cabin with the number on it, and he has like one of these same bugs, because he puts it down and lets it roll under the door, basically goes in, and he then goes in. So this like comes back basically, but it's quite the ending. It's like playing the White Rabbit song from Jefferson Airplane, all this, and any time that song comes up, I'm down for that. But that is like basically the end of the episode, which is once again just like the opening, just fantastic, just a great hook. Lots of questions are asked, but they're asked in a really good, intriguing way. It poses questions in a really good way, in a way that you want to watch more. You want to see these questions solved. You want to see what's going to happen next. It's not the sort of thing where it's done in a very kind of half-hearted sort of way where you can't be asked to watch some more. You're definitely intrigued by this, or at least I was, and I'm sure a lot of people would be, because my mum, who isn't always into this sort of thing, she seemed pretty into it as well, so we're definitely going to watch more. But one of the things about it was then when they went over onto this other ship, suddenly the transmission stopped, because you saw like the other crew on the original ship, and they were, as soon as they went over to the other ship, they were no longer getting like messages. So that's a thing. And when they got on the ship, not only was there nobody around apart from this boy they found, but the telegraph thing was broken. So it brings up the question, first of all, who was sending messages, and then the second question is, how were they sending messages when the thing's broken? So definitely you get the sense of going on to this other ship. Are they going into another time? Are they going on to like a ghost ship as was suggested? You definitely get the feeling there's going to be some sort of time travel element to it, and yeah, exactly, who was sending the message and how did they do it, all that sort of stuff. And you definitely get the sense that there's going to be connected sort of like universes. And because another thing which I wondered is then at one point you see the captain, like when he's just talked to Marina and she leaves, you see him like get a letter out of his drawer, and it seemed like a similar letter to the one she had from her brother at the start of the episode. And once again, just a theory, but because this is the sort of show, that sort of show, basically, it made me wonder if he was gonna turn out to be her brother, but in the future, that sort of thing. So that's just a possibility at the moment, and there's a number of possibilities, but as I said, it's done in such a good way. It's done in a really stylish, atmospheric type way, where it does have you on the edge of your seat, and the characters are really intriguing. The mystery's really intriguing. So I'm definitely in for it. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be for everyone. I'm not saying it is. Obviously, there are some people who probably will decide after the first episode that this isn't for me, which is totally fine. But I think even those people would concede, though, that it is well done and there is intrigue to it. It's not like just something where ideas are being thrown out there and the writers don't really know what they're doing. You can definitely see how there's real structure to this, which goes alongside the more bizarre, surreal type elements. And just from those opening shots, those landscapes of the ship and different things, and the use of music is so distinct, so well done. I really love like the electro sort of synth type stuff that just has this real like groove and surreal nature to it. So really good atmosphere, really good use of music. And as I said, so far, like some of the characters you've only got a brief bit of, so it's hard to really get a sense of how to take some of them. But there's some intriguing themes in here, some interesting setup with some of them. And as I said, certainly Emily Beecham I thought was good, and I'm invested in her character already. I like the captain already as a character, and a couple of others that intrigued me as well. So yeah, I'm really into this so far. I thought this was a very good first episode. It's a great example, as I said, of how to really hook people from the start and make them want to watch more. And just very stylish, very well done. And yeah, plenty of interesting questions. It poses lots of interesting questions and doesn't lose the audience, or it certainly didn't lose me. So that's the first episode of 1899. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and feel free to share some of your theories after this first episode. What do you think could be going on, and what do you think of some of the characters, some of the ideas? And I'll be keeping up with this. Obviously there's 8 episodes, so it's a pretty manageable watch. So hopefully I should be back with another review tomorrow. But thanks for listening. Just to promote another thing TV wise, something a bit older and more retro, me and Rachel, my regular co-host, we're working our way through Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We're on to season 2 of that, so we're going to be recording the review for season 2 this week, so you can look out for that soon. And yeah, if you're a Buffy fan, which I know a lot of people who follow me on the channel are, then you can expect that review in the coming week. But keep watching TV. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon.